You know that feeling, right? The one where you're just navigating the confusing world of health and maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the information, searching for something that resonates, something perhaps, well, more natural.
Absolutely. And that search, um, it often leads people back towards ancient wisdom, doesn't it? Traditions that have somehow stuck around for generations.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive looking into a collection of sources you shared with us, all focused on ancient home remedies and natural healing.
Yeah. Think of this as us taking your stack of material, articles, maybe some research notes, and really just pulling out the most important knowledge and perspectives found right there in that material. We're basically going to unpack what's there and hopefully help you see what's most important.
So buckle up. Our mission here is, well, it's to guide you through the insights presented in your sources, explore the claims they're making, maybe highlight some surprising facts, and definitely look at the practical applications discussed, all while keeping in mind the specific viewpoints presented. Okay. Our goal is purely to help you feel well informed on this topic based only on the material you provided.
And we'll do that by, combining a bit of enthusiasm for discovery with the ability to synthesize and add context, but only context drawn from the material itself.
Okay, let's kick things off with this central narrative that really seems woven through the source material. It paints a picture where, well, ancient natural healing wisdom seems to have been sort of pushed aside,
Yeah.
in favor of modern medicine.
That's a really significant claim you find running through the sources, yeah. They suggest this shift wasn't just, accidental. The material explicitly states that the pharmaceutical industry has a, quote, vested interest in people relying on synthetic products.
Right, and the way the sources present this is by pointing to, well, billions supposedly spent on marketing and lobbying. They argue that this really shapes the health landscape, while research into natural remedies, they claim, is often underfunded and marginalized. The material uses some pretty strong language here, doesn't it? Even terms like grand deception, to describe this idea that synthetic drugs are pushed as the only way.
Hmm. And it's important to remember as we go through this that we're just reporting on the viewpoint presented in this specific source material. This is the perspective found within these documents. They suggest that modern drugs, while sometimes necessary, of course, often focus only on masking symptoms, potentially creating dependency rather than, getting at the root causes.
But the material doesn't just critique, does it? It offers a really strong counter-narrative. It portrays ancient herbal healing as a, quote, safe, effective, and affordable alternative.
And the material argues that this knowledge, passed down for centuries, is actually finding new validation now. It claims this wisdom is being rediscovered and is, quote, backed by modern science, citing studies and even mentioning entities like the World Health Organization acknowledging traditional medicine.
So why is all of this relevant to you right now, according to these sources?
Well, the material suggests we've kind of been conditioned to reach for a pill for every ailment, and that in this age of overprescription and pharmaceutical dependency, it's more important than ever to take control of our health. It sort of frames this ancient knowledge as a path towards that control.
Which naturally leads to a really, really critical point the sources emphasize right up front. Safety and responsibility when you're exploring these remedies.
Oh, yeah. And they are crystal clear on this. The material includes absolutely crucial disclaimers. It states very clearly that the information is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. They repeatedly stress the absolute necessity of consulting a qualified healthcare practitioner before starting any new regimen. Especially, they say, if you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or have underlying health conditions. The risks of interactions with medications and potential side effects are points the material definitely comes back to again and again.
So yeah, while the exploration is fascinating, the sources make it totally non-negotiable. Do your research, talk to professionals, understand the potential interactions between herbs and any medications you might be taking, and make sure you're sourcing high-quality herbs from reputable places. Very important.
Now, okay, let's look at how the source material says these herbs actually work. It uses some pretty vivid language, calling them nature's toolbox.
I love that. It describes different actions, right? Some herbs are like tiny hammers, helping to break up congestion. Others are soothing balms, calming inflammation. And some are like jumper cables, giving your system that needed boost.
Exactly. The sources list several key herbal actions or properties. For example, they highlight anti-inflammatory herbs like turmeric and ginger viewing inflammation as like a fundamental issue in a lot of chronic illnesses.
They also discuss antiviral and antibacterial properties. They call oregano and garlic nature's antibiotics for their role in fighting infections. Makes sense.
Adaptogens, things such as ashwagandha and holy basil, are presented as really crucial for helping the body manage stress, which the sources actually label a silent killer impacting our overall health.
We also see diuretics mentioned, like dandelion and nettle, for helping the body eliminate excess fluids and waste.
And expectorants, like mullein and elecampane, are noted for their ability to help clear mucus from the respiratory system. Helpful for coughs and colds, I imagine.
Then there are nervines like chamomile and lemon balm. These are described as having a soothing effect on the nervous system, helpful for anxiety and promoting relaxation.
And one really interesting concept the sources get into, particularly drawing from traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, is energetics. They call this the subtle language of herbs.
Ah, okay. This is where it goes beyond just the chemical compounds, right? The sources explain that herbs have these energetic properties. They can be hot, warm, cool, or cold. And this apparently helps in tailoring your choice. If you feel cold and sluggish, warming herbs like ginger or cinnamon might be indicated based on this view.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have signs of heat or inflammation, cooling herbs like peppermint or cilantro could be suggested. It's a different framework.
And it's not just temperature, is it?
No, beyond temperature, herbs also have a direction they can lift energy upwards or ground it downwards, move things outward for circulation, or draw things inward to nourish. It's definitely a different way of viewing how they interact with the body than we might be used to.
Ultimately, though, the sources emphasize that these herbs function best not just on their own, but in synergy with each other and with your body's innate healing mechanisms.
Right. So building on that understanding of actions and energetics, let's look at how the sources suggest applying this wisdom to specific health concerns. The material covers a lot of ailments, so we'll just highlight a few compelling examples from what you provided.
Okay, sounds good. Starting with the immune system, the source describes it so vividly as a microscopic army.
It does. And they offer allies for this army. Echinacea is presented as an immune-boosting powerhouse, particularly noted for cold and flu support. The sources even mention studies suggesting its effectiveness might be comparable to modern flu treatments like Tamiflu. That's quite a claim.
Wow. Elderberry is another prominent example, highlighted for its antioxidant properties and its use in fighting viruses and bacteria. The sources state it can potentially help shorten the duration of the flu.
And the insight here isn't just about fighting off illness after it hits. The sources emphasize supporting the immune system proactively too, with herbs like astragalus presented as a tonic for long-term immune health, often prepared as a decoction, which is like a long-simmered tea.
Okay, moving to digestive health. The sources cover this quite extensively. The core insight seems to be how fundamental gut health is to overall well-being and how issues like bloating, gas, heartburn, they're often symptoms of some kind of imbalance.
Exactly right. And the sources provide a pretty diverse toolbox for this area. For common issues like nausea or indigestion, simple remedies like peppermint tea are suggested. For acid indigestion or GERD, chamomile tea is mentioned as a soothing option.
And for more acute things, like nausea or vomiting, ginger tea is presented as a go-to, recommended to be taken as needed. The sources even mention rice tea, just simple rice water, basically as a traditional remedy for diarrhea.
And for maybe more chronic issues like bloating or inflammation, they suggest things like dandelion tincture or turmeric supplements. And they link these back to those principles we mentioned earlier, like detoxification and reducing inflammation. The insight seems to be using different herbs that target different aspects of digestive imbalance.
The sources also dedicate significant space to stress and anxiety, reinforcing that chronic stress is just a major drain on health, which we probably all feel sometimes.
For sure. And here, those adaptogens like ashwagandha are key examples presented for their ability to help the body cope with stress, often recommended daily, perhaps in warm milk before bed, according to the sources.
Chamomile tea pops up again, this time highlighted specifically for anxiety and insomnia, suggested for evening use. The broader insight here seems to be the material's focus on addressing the nervous system directly as a way to support our overall resilience against, daily pressures.
Okay, let's look at skin health. The sources view skin as a kind of mirror of your inner health, suggesting that skin issues are often outward manifestations of internal imbalances. This connects back to those mind-body principles they talk about.
Interesting. So the sources offer topical remedies for this as well. For conditions like eczema, they suggest things like mugwort oil or goldenrod salve. For acne, pau d'arco used as a tea or wash, or lady's mantle rinse are given as examples.
Yeah, and the insight here isn't just about applying creams, right? It's about using topical applications drawn from nature, like a black cohosh poultice for rashes, to soothe and support the skin's own healing. Based on the idea that supporting the body internally and externally works together in synergy.
The sources also touch upon men's and women's vitality.
They do. For women, the material uses some pretty vivid phrases like menstrual mayhem and menopause madness to describe common challenges. It lists herbs like cramp bark and chasteberry for menstrual issues, and black cohosh and red clover for menopause symptoms.
And for men, the sources discuss a male vitality crisis, listing symptoms of low testosterone. They highlight herbs like ashwagandha, again, for stress-related low testosterone, and suma root for energy and performance.
The underlying insight across these sections seems to be the source material's perspective on supporting hormonal balance and energy levels through natural means, offering specific herbal allies for different stages or challenges in life.
Now, this next section is presented very carefully in the sources, and we need to do the same. They discuss supportive care for serious illnesses.
Yes, exactly. The material is really explicit here that these remedies are, and I'm quoting from the source, while not a replacement for conventional care, herbal remedies can provide supportive care, alleviate symptoms, and potentially enhance the effectiveness of other treatments. So, supportive care.
Right. And they provide specific examples from the material with their listed use and preparation method.
For instance, reishi mushroom is mentioned in the context of cancer, suggested in various forms like capsule or tincture. Cat's claw is listed specifically for cancer support, aiming to help with chemotherapy side effects, according to the sources.
Red clover tea is also noted in the sources in relation to cancer. For cardiovascular health, eating garlic daily is highlighted as beneficial.
St. John's wort is presented for depression and mood support, recommended as a tea in the source. And dandelion tea is mentioned for liver detox support.
And based on the source material, we absolutely must reiterate this. This information is purely educational. It is not medical advice, especially when we're talking about serious illness. Consulting a qualified healthcare professional is absolutely paramount before using any of these remedies alongside conventional medical care.
Definitely. Okay, moving beyond specific ailments now, the sources delve into some broader principles. One is detoxification.
Right. The material argues that modern life exposes us to a lot of toxins and that our lifestyles can hinder our natural detox processes.
Yeah, and the insight here seems to be that herbal support isn't about harsh cleanses, but more about gently supporting the body's own detoxification organs like the liver and kidneys. Herbs like Eclipta and Pau d'Arco are mentioned as examples in this context within the sources.
We touched on adaptogens earlier, but the sources give them a deeper look. The key idea presented is that they help the body increase resistance to stress.
The sources credit Russian research, apparently dating back to the 1940s, on athletes and even astronauts for establishing the concept. The benefits listed are quite broad, improving not just stress response, but also energy, sleep, cognition, and immune function. It's about resilience.
Examples like rhodiola and holy basil reinforce this idea of systemic support. Chandra berry is specifically noted in the sources for its positive effects on liver function, which links back to that detox principle, doesn't it?
It does. The overarching insight seems to be that adaptogens help the body maintain balance or homeostasis under pressure.
The sources also provide a brief overview of traditional medicine systems like TCM and Ayurveda.
Right. For TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, the core concept presented is this idea of mapping your body through 5 organ systems. Each is linked to different physical and emotional aspects like the liver for key flow and emotions, the heart for mind and spirit, the spleen for digestion, lungs for immunity and skin, and kidneys for essence and reproduction. The goal is always balance, often sought using herbs tailored to address specific system imbalances identified within that framework.
And Ayurveda, which the sources describe as the science of life, is centered on the 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These are linked to different elements and general characteristics.
Yeah, like Vata being creative but maybe anxious, Pitta ambitious but prone to inflammation, Kapha calm but perhaps prone to weight gain. The insight is that health approaches are tailored to an individual's unique constitution, their dominant dosha.
And both systems strongly emphasize the mind-body connection, right? The sources revisit this quite a bit, stating that ancient wisdom saw a really clear link between our physical and emotional states.
Definitely. And they note that modern science is increasingly validating this connection, showing the undeniable impact of stress on health, chronic disease, and also the benefits of positive emotional states.
The material offers practical tips from this perspective, too. Things like mindfulness, gratitude, spending time in nature, creativity, and prioritizing sleep. The source's definition of true health actually reflects this holistic view. They define it as a state of complete physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, not just the absence of disease.
Okay, let's shift gears now to the herbal toolkit section. In the source is getting practical about how these remedies can actually be used.
This includes making your own remedies. Tinctures and extracts are described as these concentrated liquid forms of herbs.
The source has briefly mentioned methods like maceration, which is basically just soaking herbs in a liquid like alcohol, vinegar, or percolation, where a solvent drips through the herb material.
And wouldn't you know it, immediately they circle back to safety. Consulting a professional, starting with low doses, being aware of interactions, using quality herbs. These points are stressed again as non-negotiable.
Examples of tinctures mentioned in the sources include things like immune-boosting blends with echinacea, elderberry, and astragalus,
Sure.
or maybe sleep-enhancing ones with valerian, chamomile, and passion flower. The insight here seems to be creating potent, concentrated herbal support that's tailored to a specific need.
Then there are salves, balms, and oils. These are presented as topical remedies, acknowledging the skin as a vital organ for health, not just a barrier.
Right. The sources give some basic steps for making these, like infusing herbs in oil or fat, straining it, adding beeswax for texture, and optionally adding essential oils, though they include a caution to always dilute essential oils properly. Simple equipment like a double boiler and jars are mentioned.
And again, safety is highlighted. Doing a patch test first, starting slow, and being careful with those essential oils. The insight is about harnessing herbal properties for direct application to the body's largest organ.
Other forms mentioned briefly include baths, compresses, and steams, using herbs like lavender or ginger for different therapeutic effects, soaking, applying heat or cold, inhaling steam.
You know, a beautifully simple concept in the sources is culinary herbs as medicine. This idea that flavor is medicine.
Yeah, I like that too. They give examples like basil, noted for potential anti-cancer properties, alongside its common use for stress reduction and immunity. And rosemary, highlighted not just for flavor, but for supporting memory and mood. The sources specifically mention compounds like rosmarinic acid found in rosemary.
And growing your own herbs is suggested as a really powerful way to connect with this concept and, ensure freshness and quality. The insight seems to be that incorporating potent, flavorful herbs into daily cooking is a foundational aspect of natural health.
And speaking of food, a major theme running through the sources is food as medicine, echoing that ancient wisdom again.
Definitely. The sources contrast this pretty sharply with the modern Western diet. Using some blunt language, I think one source called it a weed killer for your gut.
Wow, okay. Well, they offer straightforward, simple rules for optimal health. Things like focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, cooking your own meals whenever possible, eating mindfully, and listening to your body's hunger and fullness cues. The insight is really that true healing starts with foundational nutrition.
The sources also touch on principles like food combining, drawing from Ayurveda and TCM, and they list what they call ancient superfoods like bone broth, fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, and medicinal mushrooms, presenting them as powerful allies for gut health, immunity, and longevity.
Meal timing is mentioned too, citing examples from Ayurveda like having your largest meal midday and TCM's sort of Emperor Prince Pauper approach to meal size throughout the day. The overall insight from the source material is viewing food not just as fuel, but as a primary form of healing, packed with beneficial compounds that work in synergy.
And aligning with nature extends to seasonal eating, which is another principle highlighted in the sources. The idea is that eating foods that are naturally in season in your area helps our body stay in sync with the environment's rhythms.
Right. The sources provide specific examples of seasonal foods for different times of year, like peas and asparagus for spring, corn and tomatoes for summer, squash and apples for fall, citrus and root vegetables for winter.
Tips include seeking out local farmers markets and trying new seasonal recipes. The insight really is that seasonal eating provides optimal nutrients for that time of year and supports the body's natural rhythms.
Okay, finally, the sources dedicate some really important space to essential considerations. Chief among these is herb-drug interactions.
Yes, this is so critical, and the sources provide specific examples exactly as presented in the material you shared with us. We need to be clear about these.
Absolutely. For instance, they warn that herbs like garlic, ginger, ginkgo biloba, and ginseng can potentially interact with blood thinners like warfarin, possibly increasing bleeding risk. That's serious.
Very. They also note that ginseng, fenugreek, and bitter melon might affect blood sugar levels and could interact with diabetes medications.
And for heart medications, the sources flag St. John's wort, licorice, and hawthorn as having potential interactions that need careful consideration.
And crucially, St. John's wort is highlighted again for its well-known interaction with antidepressants, things like SSRIs and MAOIs, which are modern drugs used for mood and anxiety. The sources warn of a risk of something called serotonin syndrome if combined.
So the message from the sources is absolutely unequivocal, and it really bears repeating. You must consult a qualified healthcare professional before combining herbs with any medication, prescription, or over-the-counter.
The sources also offer some guidings on dosage guidelines. While stating there's no settled dose that fits everyone, they do give some general ranges for different forms, like how much herb to use for teas, typical doses for tinctures, and common ranges for capsules.
The clear instruction from the sources, however, is always to follow specific product instructions if you buy something. Or, better yet, consult a qualified herbalist or healthcare professional for personalized advice. The insight here is that while ancient knowledge exists, modern guidance and professional consultation are really needed for safe and effective use today.
The material also mentions the idea of a seasonal herbal calendar, providing notes on planting and harvesting herbs according to the season and even your region.
Yeah, they even list specific external resources, like pre-made calendars from places called the Herbal Academy or Swiss Farmers, if you wanted to explore that level of detail further.
And threading through the entire material really is this message of empowerment. The sources consistently state that knowledge is power, and that having this information empowers you to take a more active role in your health journey, guided by the insights you've explored here in your own material.
You took the step of gathering this material, right? And now, by going through it in this way, hopefully you have a clearer grasp of the knowledge it contains.
So, looking back at our deep dive into your source material, we explored that compelling narrative contrasting ancient wisdom with the modern medical landscape, as presented in the sources. We delved into the source's perspective on how herbs work their actions, their energetics. We highlighted key examples of remedies for various concerns, from immunity to vitality, all drawn from the documents. And we discussed broader healing principles presented, like detoxification, adaptogens, traditional medicine systems, and that critical mind-body connection.
And we got practical, examining different forms of remedies, tinctures, salves, teas. We look at the potent role of culinary herbs in food as medicine, and the wisdom of seasonal eating, again, as described in your sources. And we always try to ground these practices with the crucial safety considerations mentioned, like herb-drug interactions and dosage guidelines, all pulled directly from the material you provided.
Yeah, the whole purpose here was just to navigate the information within your sources and help you gain a better understanding of the core insights presented, hopefully leaving you feeling more informed on this topic based on what you already had.
And reflecting on this exploration of your sources, it does raise some thought-provoking questions, doesn't it? Given the material's strong emphasis on the mind-body connection, and how ancient systems often viewed issues like skin problems as signs of internal imbalance, well, what might our modern societal focus on just treating external symptoms reveal about how far we've perhaps drifted from addressing the root causes of our health? That's something the sources seem to hint at.
That's a great point. And how does the source's consistent emphasis on the body's own innate healing mechanisms maybe change the way we might view our own fundamental capacity for well-being? It suggests we have this built-in ability, right?
Exactly. We hope this deep dive helps you continue exploring the insights contained within your source material, and if you choose to, apply this knowledge responsibly in your own health journey.
And that's it for this deep dive.